Yeah, I meant to do that. Oh yeah, okay. Cool. So yeah, we've gotten a bunch of questions on practical tips for busy runners, how to get out the door and stuff like that, setting yourself up for success. And I don't know, we think about it in terms of like making the stars align, right? Like they're not just going to align for you. You've got to develop the habits and the routine to make it all work. And a lot of that is based on trial and error and experience. But we do think that there are some ways to go about it that will help you overall.
Yeah, I guess I just want to preface it with
Mhm.
saying that there like a lot of people on the team are really really busy and they're also very high achievers in like all the things that they do. Things like come and go, jobs like there's always going to be some times that are busier than others, but what's really important is just developing those habits and making excellence a part of your daily routine, right? Like figuring out how to make that something that you undertake every day in a bunch of really small ways. I don't think we have very many people on the team who are like, wow, my schedule is so open. It's always easy to prioritize consistency, right? Like everyone here is doing amazing things in life and in running. And I think it's just so important to like, everyone is a superstar and you guys are doing so amazing with all the things. But just know that like you're not limited by how busy you are, right? Like you have to work with what you have and don't let busyness be a way for you to kind of like protect yourself emotionally from achieving great things. Like part of being vulnerable is figuring and like brave and your training is figuring out how to make it work so that you can really really go for it in an athletic life.
Yeah, because you guys are busy and you should be able to maximize your time and get the most out of what you're doing and what you're engaging with. I think that that's really, really important. Yeah, so let's just jump in. I think let's jump in with the big stuff first,
Yeah.
like sleep and nutrition and kind of building a routine on that.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
you're kind of a sleep wizard. Do you want to talk
sure.
about like how you build a sleep routine that like thinking about how to build a sleep routine that supports a running routine? Like how do those things relate for you and what specific steps do you take to make that easier on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think honestly it's all about building a routine first and foremost. So that having a bedtime routine that starts an hour before you want to go to sleep and making that consistent 6 nights a week, at least seven if you can. I know for some people the weekend want you like to be a little more flexible, so you might want to start with just during the week. For us, like we're trying to be in bed and hopefully asleep by 9. So that means at 8 o'clock we start our bedtime routine. So that's like unwinding, try to maybe put the computer away and stop Netflix or whatever and read a book, brush the teeth, have a little magnesium to kind of relax the muscles, especially after training. It can be really, really helpful to help you relax and go to bed. I know for a lot of people who have really intense jobs, a lot of tension builds in the body throughout the day. So like our shoulders are up, we're like lowering our neck. There's a lot of energy in the body. We need to start to release that stuff in order to relax into sleep. So one of the things that I do to help me do that is I take some magnesium, 250 to 500 milligrams. I don't. There's a great product out there called Calm where you can mix it magnesium flavored into a drink. That's great if you're kind of a frequent like bathroom user at night. I would say grab some like 100 milligram to 250 milligram little capsules instead, because drinking like 12 ounces of water straight before you go to bed will definitely cause you to need to go to the bathroom at night and disrupt your sleep. So yeah, I mean, the first thing is like set the routine, 8 o'clock, electronics off, work mode done. Big rule in our house is like no work discussion, coaching, trail runner, anything else like at 8 o'clock or after. Because if you go to bed with work on your mind, you're not going to get a restful night of sleep. You're going to have anxiety about something work related. You might dream about it. You might go to bed with some tension. So that is really, really important, right? So like around 9, we try to like shut the lights off, and hopefully, if we're tired, we'll fall asleep.
I kind of want to say that, like, even beyond saying like we try to go to bed, like I specifically make it so that my phone shuts off at a certain time of night. Like I am not getting bothered. Hopefully, no one has an emergency after my bedtime because like I am just not available to people then. And I think that's really important for me to have those really strict boundaries around my bedtime routine because sleep has been a thing that I have struggled with in the past, and I have to work
Mhm.
super hard to build like specific routines and boundaries around. So I set an alarm that tells me like when it's time to go to bed, because I know how much sleep I need to get in a night and I know what time I need to wake up in the morning. So I count backwards and set an alarm and I stick to it. In the same way that you wouldn't like hit snooze 1 million times in the morning and expect to have a great day, don't hit snooze on your bedtime either and expect to have a great morning the next day. Take the time that you go to sleep as seriously as you do the time you wake up.
Yeah. So
And
I
be like you can, own it. Own your bedtime.
you really own your bedtime. This is something that like Zoe has worked really, really hard on. And it does come down to being a little bit more strict, right? Like how do we build habits? Well, we have to set ourselves up for success. If we don't want to eat cookies, everyone should eat cookies. But if you don't want to eat cookies, don't put a cookie next to you and say, I'm gonna, have so much willpower I won't eat that cookie. Don't buy the cookie if you don't want to eat the cookie. So like if you don't want to be disturbed after a certain time, don't bring your phone into your room. Set your phone to turn off or to be silenced. The sleep mode is or silence mode is really, really important. That's something that we definitely use. And then getting up. So like if you get 8 to 10 hours of sleep, you're going to be feeling really fresh. You're going to be able to attack a busy day with good clarity and energy. But if you wait around in bed, snooze, 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 you're wasting a lot of time, right? So like we try to like when we have stuff to do, we set the alarm and we get up. And ideally, you set your bedtime alarm and your morning alarm, and they're at least 8 hours apart. So you can guarantee that optimal 8 hours of sleep. Something that we notice as athletes over the years is the more we're training, the more sleep we need. So I need 10 hours a lot of the time. And Zoe's really been thriving on 9 or 10 hours too.
Really trying to
Um,
get to that 10.
yeah, I mean, it
It's like my weekend
really
treat
makes a
these days.
difference. And so if it means like a 1 hour less of Netflix at night, at least for us in the way we prioritize our lives, it's worth it to watch 1 hour less of TV to get 1 hour more time in the day the next day to focus on coaching, training, work, etc., and to feel better because we've gotten that extra hour of sleep.
With the caveat of also, we know that a lot of times when people are losing sleep, it's not necessarily because of Netflix, it's because
Right.
of really challenging parenting and family situations. You guys are doing amazing, and just know that it's okay for you to express your needs around additional sleep. Like, it breaks my heart to see athletes that are getting, it's really hard to be a parent, and it's really hard to be a parent and an athlete. Just know that it's like okay for you to advocate yourself in a relationship, and people want to support you, and like your coach wants to support you. And we're always excited to work with people who are balancing like new parenthood or are like veteran parents, and there's always things that come up. And we're not going to be like hard on you if you miss a night of sleep or anything. Like things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs get sick, kids get sick, like things happen. But just know that it's okay for you to ask for people to support you in getting more sleep.
Absolutely. You said that so well. I think that really sums it up. Let's move on to talking about eating habits and
It's my
making sure
favorite.
that we're eating really well throughout the day so that we're fueled and ready to go on our runs. You're the expert eater. You could how do you yeah,
Semi-professional.
like how do you schedule out your eating routine? Like are you super strict? It's on the hour, every 3 hours.
I actually don't
What
think
do
of it in
you
terms of like a specific time to eat. I think about the time that I have scheduled my run in, and I count back 2 hours from that, and that's when I make sure to eat. Because
mm,
the best time to eat before a run is about 2 hours in advance, because that's kind of enough time for you to digest. So, like for me, I'm not going to get an upset stomach, but I can still eat like quite a bit because I do need to eat quite a bit to support my training. So, if I'm going to run at like 10 o'clock or 10:30, I usually eat like 2 breakfasts at this point because I get up pretty early and I'll have like a little snack to take the hunger off. And then I'll have a second larger breakfast. And that's kind of like my training support breakfast, which is the breakfast that supplies the majority of the calories for my workout or run. So count backwards from the time that you're planning on running and try to eat about 2 hours before that. I know that can be tough for people who run first thing in the morning. And a couple things that we've seen work really well for people like that is like a toaster waffle or a Stroop waffle, something just small, like a piece of toast with some nut butter, a banana with some nut butter, just like 1 to 200 calories of just something so that you're not running totally in a fasted state. It doesn't have to be a big production. You don't need to feel like you need the perfect 2 Zoe breakfast combo before you get out on your morning run. But if you are, running first thing in the morning, make sure you have a bit of food beforehand, and then make sure you're eating like 200 to 300 calories at a minimum after that to replenish after your run. And once again, those numbers are all flexible depending on how much you're actually training and what works for you.
Awesome.
But just like think when you're going to run and then plan your food around to support that. And then I like to eat directly after my run so that way I don't get hungry after I've been out there running for like an hour, hour and a half, whatever it is. And I always try to have lunch either totally ready for when I come back or something I can throw together or reheat really quickly, like a smoothie, or leftovers are honestly everyone's best friend.
This is a really good topic, I think, to dive into and just give 3 minutes to. In terms of food preparation and how you can better utilize your time throughout the day. If you're really busy, you don't want to spend a lot of time cooking, right?
Right.
So something that we do in our house is to cook once and eat 2 or 3 times. So if we cook a dinner, we will make sure that portion wise, we have at least each of us another lunch out of that, if not 2 more lunches out of that. That way, there's food available post run, and we don't have to do a whole production to make lunch afterwards. And I think that we're able to better utilize time that way, because those things are available straight away. Another thing that we both do, especially when we have the early morning departures, is to set all the food out in the morning ahead of time, especially like get the granola out, put the bowls out, get the coffee ground already. Just those little preparation things that you can do in the evening to set yourself up the next morning to make things more automatic, can be really, really helpful.
And we've had some athletes that are really into meal prep, and that's awesome. But I feel like, for a lot of people, that's not a super realistic activity for us to prepare substantial amounts of food in like huge chunks of time. But I think you can kind of think about like, how do you do like a day or like one, just a few hours worth of meal prep, and making sure that you don't have to like constantly be thinking on your feet for where your next meal is coming from. Because we would always rather it is in a lot of cases much better to not run than it is to run under fueled, right? Because that can be very counterproductive, if not an outright injury risk. So
Definitely.
don't skip your lunch to get a run in. Think about how you're going to get your run in and also have that lunch. They need to work together.
Mm-hmm. And the lunch can always be, after the run. It depends. And I think this leads us into maybe our next topic about compartmentalizing your day. And that, in my mind, sometimes a snack comes before the run and lunch comes after for recovery. And so that's, how to compartmentalize your day. So it's not just about scheduling out your meetings and your work obligations and putting your run somewhere in there. Eating and your eating habits have to fit in there as well. I think this is something that like Zoe maybe has a little more expertise in because her schedule is very regimented because of the demands of the work she does. Um, but Zoe, like, how do you compartmentalize your day, and how does that productivity wise for you?
Yeah, for me, it's like all about boundary setting in everything I do, right? Like if I'm coaching, I'm not working on trail runner work. If I'm doing trail runner work, I'm not coaching. If I'm running, I'm not doing either of those, right? So like when I'm out on a run, I'm not going to respond to athlete texts or phone calls or work emails. If I'm coaching, I'm not thinking about like, oh, how am I going to get like thinking about my run? Like, oh, what's the weather like? What am I going to wear? What am I going to do it, right? Like I am fully trying to pour myself into the thing that I'm doing, not just because like, you know, obviously I want to be there for my people, but because that allows me to just be more efficient and effective when I'm doing those things. You know, if you're out on a run and you stop every time you get a text or an email notification, that's not great. Not great for your training, right? Like you wouldn't do that during a meeting, so don't do that during your run. Make your run a meeting with yourself that you have 5 times a week. So set aside specific time where you're not going to take call. And this is, once again, the caveats being, some people, like we have ICU nurses on the team, like you do you, we know you're on call, you guys are amazing. Parents, you know, run with your phone, stay in touch with the kiddos, but as much as possible, try to disconnect when you're on your run, not just because of like some hippy dippy like be present reason, but because there has been no study that has ever shown that people are good or enjoy, or actually they do enjoy, but they are not good at multitasking. So don't try to multitask at any point during your day. When you're running, be running, you know.
Yeah.
Try, you know, I always like that as a time where I can kind of problem solve about things I might be encountering at work, or is just like nice time off the clock. But just try to set aside that time and like take it seriously, you know, in the same way that you wouldn't like show up to an important meeting with your boss or like with a coworker and not take it seriously and like be on your phone and like drag your feet. Like you know, take those things as seriously, like prioritize the things that are important for you to fit everything in a certain day.
Right, exactly. It's really important. I think we could get into some more detail about compartmentalizing things as well. If if you have scheduled meetings, if you have work obligations, your run might need to be treated in the same way as that work meeting. And so blocking out a specific time and putting it in your planner and treating it as if it's as important as the meeting. And, you know, for us, it is just as important as a meeting, if not maybe more important, depending on the day and the workout.
Depending on the meeting.
Yeah. So, you know, plan this stuff out and take it a little bit seriously. If you're booked with Zoom calls from 9 to 10 and then from 10 to 11, 11 o'clock is your snack. 1 o'clock is your, you know, ideally would be a great time to go get your run in. And that kind of also adds, it periodizes your day. So you can get that break from work and then after the run come back and it's like from 2:30 to 5:30 you are more focused on work because you've gotten that run in. You're not going to be distracted thinking about when am I going to get the run in, when am I going to get the run in. You've done it. You're focused. You're not, hopefully not multitasking too much. And then you're moving forward. And after the day, maybe that's when you add in that next like thing. Oh, I would like to do my cross training now, a little bit of strength work or ride the bike. You know, you can bookend your day with that, and that marks the end of your work day and allows you to go into the rest of the day in the evening kind of a little bit more detached from work. And I think this is especially helpful for people who are working from home, because it's very hard to detach from when the end of the workday actually is, because it's easy to pull your computer out and work all the time. Um,
Also, I think it's important to find a time of day that works best for you to make that run happen. If you get in a habit, if you are trying to do your runs in the morning and you're repeatedly hitting snooze and missing those runs, maybe move away from that as being your primary time to try to get the running, because you don't want to fall into that habit of saying this is when I'm going to run and then not running at that time. Same thing if you're like, I'm going to run after work, and then repeatedly you get to the end of the day and it doesn't happen, right? Like you need to be able to say like, okay, this isn't happening, clearly I need to move towards an alternate solution. Like we're all going to have days where like it truly doesn't happen, like you know, where you'll, something happens, a kid gets sick, you have to like go to the emergency vet, you know, like you're following UTMB and you're, you know, living out of a van, like things just happen and that's okay. But what you need to do is like start to find patterns where you're noticing like points of failure in your ability to prioritize consistency. If you keep hitting snooze and missing your morning runs, let's try running in the evening or the afternoon. If you keep getting to the end of the day and you're too tired and that run doesn't happen a lot of times, I think it's probably time to try a morning run. And just finding that time where it becomes a lot easier for you to not say no. I know that's a lot of double negatives, but you're just trying to make it easier for yourself to like not let yourself down.
Yeah. I do find Derek's comment here very interesting. He writes, if I prioritize runs the same as meetings, all I would do is find excuses not to run.
This is a man that gets his runs in.
You're right on. And I think it's a guy who also doesn't like his meetings as much as running.
Man, I don't think there's anyone who's like, man, you know what I love? Meetings.
A good Zoom meeting.
I love a good Zoom meeting. Love a bad Zoom meeting.
Well, cool. Yeah, Derek, thanks for that. I think for a lot of us, running is a big passion and something that we really look forward to in the day. And I often people with that mentality don't have a difficult time getting out and getting their run in, even when stuff is busy, because they start their day with the idea of when will my run get in? I see, and then they just know, and everything else kind of works around it. Something that I often talk about with Zoe is, when Zoe wakes up in the morning, she's already knows when she's going to run. She has her schedule for work. She knows what her obligations are, more or less, and then knows where that run is going to go. So she's always looking ahead and finding that time. And that's something that it works really well for her and is important, but I think is very driven by passion and the fact that she loves to be out there. Rather, if running wasn't maybe her number one priority, she might find something else to go into the spaces that exist in her work schedule, which, to be fair, I think are kind of few and far between on most days. I think, and you kind of just touched on it, Zoe, but like thinking about like perfect weather and waiting or waiting for motivation.
Yeah, and I feel like this is something, I've seen in myself and I've seen in a lot of athletes. They're like, I was waiting for that weather window and it didn't happen, so I didn't run. Or like, I sat around and I was just waiting for that feeling of motivation to strike before I went out on my run. And it's just not gonna happen, right? Like I would much rather you run when you're at like 40% motivation than not run at all. I would rather you run in maybe suboptimal but not dangerous weather than not run.
Yeah,
sometimes waiting it out is just a strategy that like kind of can insulate us from like feeling like we've made the decision not to run. When you're not running, you are making the decision not to run, but you're kind of like mentally allowing yourself to think like, oh, like maybe it will happen. So just like hold yourself accountable and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. Don't wait for it. If you've got goals, those goals are not going to wait for you. You're going to find yourself out there wishing you had done those extra runs.
Run in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Yeah. Make it happen, guys. If you love the goals that you've set for yourself, part of being a busy person is finding a time to stay on track for those, and putting the small steps in every day that you need to in order to set yourself up for success. I think that every time for me as a coach working with, you guys on the team, that's something I see time and time again. It's like the athletes that are the most consistent, even if it's just 20 minutes, they always blow me away by finishing races that I was almost like, I wasn't sure if they were prepared. Like they didn't nail their training perfectly, but man, they were out there every day, no matter what, grinding. And this kind of leads us to like this. I think it's kind of a Zoeism, but it's like, don't wait for perfect, right? So
good now is better than perfect, maybe never.
And perfect training isn't always the key to a successful
perfect training is never the key. Yeah.
So just getting out there and doing the best with what you can. It looks like we've got a little side chatter. Ice, yes, that's awesome, man. Whatever motivates you.
And I think
we're motivated by pizza.
Yes, we are motivated. And I think what I wish how do you pronounce his name? Bagarv. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Bagarv makes a really great point. And I think finding little like carrots you can use to motivate yourself with can be hugely powerful. For me, I save my favorite podcasts for my run, so that like, you know, I love to listen to Reply All and This American Life, and I only listen to those when I'm running, and it's like a really nice treat for me to just like go at aerobic effort and listen to my favorite podcasts. I have playlists that I only listen to when I'm doing workouts, and they're super fun and goofy and I love to listen to them, but I kind of like use them as a motivation to have fun on my workouts. And I think that, you know, just finding ways, like maybe there's audio, but like you can really get into an audiobook that you will only allow yourself to listen to on your workout. Like find ways to make it, you know, like to increase your motivation. And then don't depend on that, right? Because like if the only thing that I was like relying on to reach greatness is like, you know, Ira Glass motivating me, I would need a little bit more input. But you can find cool, fun ways to make running, like to make it more enjoyable too.
What about when days are busy and we're kind of like periodizing things? Should we break our runs up?
No. So this is something we see a lot, like especially when we'll for instance assign a 6 mile run to an athlete and we'll see them try to break it into 2 3 mile runs. That stimulus is significantly different. The better choice would be to just get in a 4 mile run or a 5 mile run, because 2 3 mile runs is just, that's 2 3 mile runs, right? You know, you can't win a 100 by running 4 marathons. It's a 100. So thinking about things in that term, because like each mile that you run or each minute is different because of what you were doing in the minute before that. So, you know, with a 6 mile or a 1 hour run, like we're looking for a fairly specific stimulus there, and breaking that into 2 30-minute chunks is just a different stimulus. So if you're feeling really short on time, again, don't speed up to get it all in. Reduce your mileage. Don't split it up either. Like if, you know, if you only have like a little bit of time in the morning and afternoon, you know, use that time in the morning, get the miles in that you can, and then use that time in the afternoon to maybe either make it easier for you to get your miles in the next day or just chill and be a person. Like both of those are great things. So don't get in the habit of trying to split your runs up or like try to fit them in weird places. Like don't, you know, we want to emphasize quality training rather than just getting the miles in, right? Training
Yeah.
isn't a bucket that we fill just being like mileage, mileage, mileage. It's a wall that we're building out of very specific bricks. So like if your kids are playing at the playground, you don't need to run laps around them, right? Like just be present with your kids. If you need to go on your run, like find a way where you can incorporate some childcare so that you can emphasize the quality of your training. And don't try to just like squeeze training into the little like crevices of your life, and like don't try to like, you know, run like literally run errands, because that's just going to be like lesser quality because you're stopping. So it significantly alters the stimulus in a way that is less good for your training, when at that point, like if the only way you were going to get a run in was to like, you know, run to the grocery store, just rest, you know, like that's going to be better for the long term, for your long term growth anyway,
I
than
think
just
so too.
making yourself crazy trying to squeeze training into like every little corner of your life.
Yeah, and when we're talking about compartmentalizing your day or periodizing your day, it's really all about giving yourself a block of time. And this is definitely something that I've been talking about with a few different athletes actually recently this week. Is like thinking about winter, thinking about, you know, previous training, and how much time an athlete thinks that they have during the week to devote to training, and that kind of stuff is important, right? So if like you have an understanding of how much time per day you have, uh things happen, maybe you can't every single day, maybe 90 out of 100 days you're able to give it 1 hour a day during the week, and that's really great. But knowing how much time you have available and then working with your coach to give you something that fills that time and makes that time meaningful so you can work towards your goals, in a very intentional and purposeful way, is going to help you take advantage of that time rather than to make that time kind of ebb and flow or oscillate. We're going to use that time purposefully, and then you don't have to feel as stressed about like, how do I fit it in? I need to do 3 miles to the grocery store and then 3 miles back. Um, that's something that like that's not optimal because we need the time on feet, right? So like some of this stuff is cumulative, especially when we're talking about ultra running and marathon running, or adventuring in the mountains. You don't get to split your race up. You know, you can stop at an aid station for a few minutes but you've got to be moving forward the longer, you've got those cutoffs. So we're thinking about things in those terms. So give yourself that block of time. If you're wondering how much time you have, just takes a few minutes to like sit down and think about that, and then to kind of let your coach know. That way the training is very appropriate for your schedule, and then your coach can help to facilitate maybe getting a little more space for you in that schedule when you have to put the hammer down because you're in 10 weeks before a big race or something like that, and we need to get a little bit more training in.
What about the 10-minute rule?
Oh yeah, I love the 10-minute rule.
I would love to hear what you think about the 10-minute rule.
So yeah, I think, oh, Skylar's listening. He's a big fan of the 10-minute rule. He's one of my, like, he crushes the 10-minute rule. When you aren't feeling super motivated, but you only have a little bit of time in the day to get out and run, or you're not feeling great, I love the 10-minute rule. It's something that I've done 100 times for myself. I do my warm up. I say I'm going to give it 10 minutes. I'm going to go out and run for 10 minutes. If I don't feel better after 10 minutes, I'm gonna call it. So it's all about being honest with yourself. And in most cases, that athlete or me, I feel better after that, giving it that 10-minute chance. So much so that like I usually say I'll give it 10 more minutes. And then I get to 20 minutes, and then it's like, well, I might as well complete the workout. The workout's only 40 minutes. Or, I'll get to 30 minutes and I'll do 10 minutes at a time, and I'll be like, I'm progressively feeling better. This is perfect. Most of the time, our goal anyways is to make the last few miles of your run be the best miles anyways. So I think for anybody who's a little bit hung up on like, I'm not feeling motivated, or I felt like, off today.
5 miles seems totally undoable, but 10 minutes is always pretty doable.
Right. Because in a busy day with a busy schedule, sometimes even doing 5 miles can feel overwhelming, or doing 20 minutes of work can feel overwhelming. Right. So give it a chance. Put in the 10-minute rule, put your shoes on. 10 or 20 minutes is consistency in our minds. It's not maybe the most optimal thing you could be doing that day if you had an hour on your schedule, but it's still great. It's
and over
still
the course of like years and years and years, which is of course, the like scale that we're operating on for athletic improvement, if every time you were tempted to take a 0 day, you took a 10-minute day instead, that could be like hundreds of more minutes, right?
Exactly.
So like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Just give it a shot. And I think James makes an amazing point, is never judge a run by the first mile or two. I think everyone has had the experience of like the first 2 miles, you're like, oh my God, this is so bad that I might just like have to quit running forever and like move to a different town and change my name and start over. Like, I think we've all been there. And, if, the 10-minute rule, like if it's super, I think there's, that point where you can tell like, I have the energy, but maybe this isn't a great run. Like, should I bail? I think it's fine sussing out that point where you're like, continuing would be counterproductive. Like, it would make it so that I can't get out and run again tomorrow. Or, I can probably like keep going today in a way that's sustainable for my long-term growth. Because sometimes like the first 2 miles just feel really not great.
Rough, or you're just not feeling that good when you get out there. Yeah. Especially if you've had a busy day. I think sometimes the stress kind of can kind of boil over into that run, and it's hard to get into like run mode when you've just gotten off a meeting.
Yeah. Give yourself the next, always give yourself 10 more minutes to turn it around. If you like, if you go out on a run and you like have the time and the energy and you're like, this just does not feel great, keep being like, what, let's see how it feels in 10 minutes. Just, allow yourself to get through to the other side.
Zoe, I think we touched on it a little bit, but perhaps we could get a little bit more specific. I know for busy athletes, sometimes when they've got a lot of meetings on the schedule, whether they're working from home or going to the office, what is the best way in your mind as a busy athlete? How do you advocate for your time with your employer?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, I think it's just like owning that I am an athlete and then it's okay for that to take time out of my day. And like I used to be very hesitant to own my athletic self, particularly like when I worked at an NPR member station. I was like, I can't let anyone find out that I'm trying to be awesome at like more than one thing. When, you know, I've been able to be more honest and vulnerable about like what my goals are, both professionally and personally, I have found that people are hugely supportive and really like it when you're able to be transparent. And I think just like owning and recruiting people to be part of your support network, right? Like when I need to get a run in, and it's going to affect like our partner schedule, like I'll let TJ know, like, hey, I need you to take the reins on dinner. Otherwise, my run's not going to be possible in the way that I want it to be. And just like enabling people to support you because people do want to cheer for you. People do want to support you. And just being transparent about what your needs are and allowing them to help you really I think is super super huge. Like I know not everyone can walk into the office and like demand that they get lunch off to complete their 10-mile run every day. I know that that's not realistic for everyone, but find a way to really own your athletic self and to allow that to thrive with the things that you're doing already.
Yeah, like don't be afraid to talk about it in the workplace. Don't be afraid to talk about it with your coworkers and to share kind of the things that you're passionate about and that you are setting goals outside of your career. You know, it's important to own that, and a way to own that is by talking about it, right? Another way of owning it is writing it down, sharing that on your, you know, in your Slack channel with people at work. Um,
I have a
Putting it
Google
out there.
Calendar that I use with my work, like especially when I'm scheduling interviews, where I tell people like what parts of my day or people have access to my calendar can see what parts of my day are blocked out and when I'm not going to be accessible, and there's no expectation around my presence being places or like me being reachable by phone or email or whatever. And then I'll have appointments so that people still have flexibility if they want to meet and talk with me, but they can still choose from a range of times that makes it feel good and accessible to them.
Yeah, and that's actually not the first time I've heard somebody say that they set their schedule up that way.
Yeah.
I was just talking to an athlete yesterday at the group run that we did, and she said that she blocks out time almost in that exact same manner, where she's got her schedule, people can view it. She, you know, her meetings are there, and then she also has time where it just kind of says unavailable. Um, and that's, you know, somebody who's working a lot, 8 to 10 hours in a day. When you're working from home, I think there's a degree of flexibility that you have to do that. um, but I would say if you have the opportunity to do that, advocate for yourself, be your own advocate. It's so important.
And I feel like when I was a younger athlete, I had a really hard time asking for time to myself because I was like, oh, I'm not really even training for anything and I'm not that good. It feels really silly to ask for time to go do this thing that I'm like not that great at. And like the thing that led to me getting better was like expecting that growth for myself and just enabling other people to be my supporters along the way. Like allowing myself, like allowing my athletic life to take up more space and not like feeling shame around it or hesitant in expressing my thoughts and goals around like what I wanted out of myself. And like, you know, as soon as I opened up that possibility, things like really did get better.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that that's very true for everybody in all respects, in all aspects of
Yeah, like
life.
don't be afraid to claim your athleticism, right? Like there is no gatekeeping going on. If
Yeah.
you're listening to this call, you are clearly an athlete because you've sat through 50 minutes of us talking, so you're a certified endurance athlete. So just own it,
Endurance
you know?
listener.
Like advocate for yourself, like at home,
Hmm.
at work, like whatever, you know, allow people to be on your team because they want to be, and you just have to give them that opportunity most times.
Awesome. I think that's a good place to leave it. I think I've hit all the points that I wanted to.
Yeah.
Are you feel good?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like
Great.
if people are busy, then, you know, we should give them that time, huh?
Yeah. This is awesome. I just wanted to highlight a couple really great comments. Never judge a run by the first mile or two. The first mile or two can always be a liar. Thank you, Skylar. I love that. Uh, if I judged the my runs by the first mile, I'd never run. Um, first miles are the devil and they exist only to
Wow, no love
demotivate
for the
us.
first mile.
Yeah, nobody likes the first mile.
This is how I feel like I know that they're ultra runners, right? Like for me, I always like joke that it takes me like a full half marathon to like get warmed up in a race, and I allow myself to have at minimum one bad half marathon.
Awesome. And I think my favorite comment in here is I find that appreciating the small things on my daily routine helps me to have my best easy runs. It's all about the small things.
Mhm.
I think definitely thinking about and expressing gratitude in whatever way that you can is just so important. Little things add up. We're huge advocates for that. If you've kind of worked with us for long enough, you know that's why we start small and dream big. But yeah, this was great. Thank you guys. I think just to summarize it, maybe because we chatted quite a bit today, set a sleep routine, prioritize your sleep. Good sleep leads to more energy, better clarity, better recovery. You're going to be able to get through your day as busy as it and challenging as it gets. You're going to be able to get through it in a better way. Um, we're also talking about making sure that you have a routine around when you eat. Set yourself up for success. Zoe's and Kylie kind of influenced that tip.
Oh,
Eat
that's
two
all Kylie.
hours
Have an
before a
eating schedule.
run.
Yeah.
Have that schedule. A great window for eating afterwards is within hopefully 30 minutes. I don't like to push that too far out, but you might be able to stretch to 2 hours.
But also, evidence suggests, contrary to popular belief, that you can replenish your glycogen stores effectively. There's not really a window of perfection. So once again, if you're like, I'm gonna miss the window, don't not eat, right?
Yeah.
Like still prioritize the eating, but the sooner you eat after you run, the better.
And compartmentalize your day. Set yourself up for success. Have blocks of time set out. Block for work, block for training, block for work, block for training, block for dinner, block for your sleep routine, whatever that looks and however that looks like for you. Compartmentalize your day. And more specifically, when you're compartmentalizing things, just do one thing at a time. There's no science to support multitasking. All the science supports being present and fully present in that thing that you're doing, right? So if you're going to be coaching and reading training logs, be coaching and reading training logs. Don't be reading a training article at the same time. If you're
one tab,
or one tab and a tab that is helping you do that thing. Try not to be on your phone available taking a text message while you're reading something that's important or getting back to somebody on an email. One thing at a time. Set yourself up. Something that we are kind of trying to work on is like doing like 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. This is something that's been proven in very productive work spaces as an
or like the
effective
Pomodoro
way.
method.
Yeah.
Like find a break find a cycle of time on, time off that works for you, because it is very hard to work efficiently for like, oh, I'm just going to do 9 hours of uninterrupted. Like that's just not how the human brain works. So don't force your brain to work in ways that's not good, productive, or makes it happy.
And then another great point was advocate for yourself with your workplace and own your passions, own your goals and your training. Don't be afraid to talk about it and to express the importance of that in your life. Turns out that a lot of people probably will be really supportive of those things, and maybe are just waiting to hear from you about that kind of stuff, or to be inspired by you and all the cool things that you're doing. Another good tip was try not to split up your runs. And
just don't split up your runs. Like run or rest.
Yes, run or rest.
Hard stop on the splitting up runs.
Okay, I'm not as hard as Zoe.
I'm a tough coach.
I agree. I do agree. And I also agree, leave the phones at home, guys, if you can, or carry them for emergencies, but
or
don't
like keep
take
them on like
them
do
out.
not disturb or silent.
Yeah, try not to take phone calls while you run or text. It's a run to be a run, not to be a phone call, not to be work. Give yourself that time and that space. You've earned it. You're working your butt off, and you deserve to have that time. I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate the comments about the first 2 miles. Don't trust them. We've kind of We agree with that too.
Yeah.
And that definitely is hugely important in our
Yeah.
own running. If you guys have questions about these calls, you can always put them in the chat box here or comments. If you have questions that you'd like us to address in one of these calls, we would love for you to email us or put it in your training log because this stuff is 100% driven by you all. So this is something that has been asked several times recently, and that's why we're talking about it. And hopefully, we'll help you guys out. Build that routine. Starts with sleep and eating schedule, and then goes to work and throughout the rest of your day. Finding a time to get your run in is just as important as probably scheduling that meeting and whatnot. So if you're a high achieving athlete, which all of you guys are, we trust that you can get it done.
Yeah.
And we've seen that you do. So
And it's okay to
we're
have days where
impressed.
it doesn't work out. Cut
Yeah,
yourself slack.
that's true. The DMV days, at least for
Oh
me,
yeah.
those are the days I never can get a run
Need a DMV taper.
in. All right, we're gonna sign off. But thanks, guys. And we're gonna do rapid fire nutrition Friday with Kylie, or I am. Zoe's gonna be out of town at trail running conference. So I hope that you guys can tune in. It'll be super fun and informative.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Enjoy the rest of the day. Oh, stop recording.
Yay.
Cool.